my. Right, yeah, this one.
So I have, I'm just gonna set these up here. Welcome. Hello. Hi. Share. Do you want to share with us?
No, you don't want to hear what I was just saying.
I have, I love this poem by David White. It's called Self-Portrait, but I think it really fits for the Anamkara, and then just a brief sentence, a short sentence about what an Anamkara is. That's quoted by me. I don't know. And then Richard Kilter's her quote, which I found hysterical. Do you remember it? I'll read it to you. It's hysterical. Before they need nothing until you get a soul friend. For anyone without a soul friend is like a body without a head. It's like water of a polluted lake, neither good for drinking nor for washing. This is a person without a soul friend. So, get a soul friend. And then I'm obsessed with cards, and I read the tarot, and I collect oracle decks, and I'm about to publish one, and all. So I have on the first 4 practices that we've been doing, but I couldn't cut them. I failed at cutting them really badly. So I'm going to put these out here. So what you would do if you wanted to cut them to make little cards is you would just cut, in this way, and then you have a card on each of the things we've covered. Does this make sense to you? Okay. So I apologize for not doing it, even with the cutter. So
There will be yours, challenge.
And you can grab them. And then also
I have to plug this Abbey of the Arts. This is a wonderful organization, and Marcy Hall is the artist, and she's done a lot of saints, and a lot of them are from, they're very much on the mystic end of saints. And of course, there's one of Bridget. And if you were saying it in Gaelic, it would be read. You may pronounce the T depending on. So anyway, I just thought I'd leave that there for that. And you can go through these, they're really fun.
there's another saint.
Itka, and she was also associated with Bridget. So trying to get comfortable. And I just want to make this invitation, and we'll talk a little bit, we're going to review a little bit today, but that once you enter this room, to take on the stance of the Anamkara, that we're soul friendly here. That's what we're doing, especially on this day, on Thursdays. And it's a good practice, and we'll kind of go over what that practice is. So we're going to talk more about threshold swing. Now let's just center. So finding, legs across, uncross, and cross your legs.
So be comfortable.
Find comfort uncrossed. And if you're comfortable, just close your eyes. Close your eyes. And just focus on the breath for a moment. And not from a place of judgment or adjustment to the breath. Just notice it for a moment. Gently finding your tailbone sinking into the chair. And as your tailbone sinks into the chair, the very top of your skull flows away from the tailbone. You can attune to the light on the outside of your body. Imagine that you're surrounded by light, almost embraced by it. Only in breath, allowing that light to infuse your body. And only exhale. has a color or a texture. And on your next exhalation, allow your eyes to open, but keeping a soft gaze. So I thought we'd start with just a brief check-in, especially because we're small today. Instead of remember the three essential things, that's the thing we did the first lesson. One essential thing. One other way of wording this is from one of my favorite writers and theologians, Barbara Brown Taylor. And she kind of poses the question this way: what is saving your life right now? What's just like keeping you going right now? What's the safety net, that part which is buoying you up? So that is essential. So think about that as your check-in question. Try to keep it to just a few sentences.
I'm preparing for a trip to New York, so I've been packing. And so I'm teaching back in Chautauqua and I'm packing art supplies. So that's really keeping me going because I don't know how much to pack. And that's kind of like a bigger question in your life, you know, what do you let go of and what do you take with you? That's essential. And you can put in the overhead. So that's what I've been dealing with in my head.
And that's what's saving you right now.
Well, I don't know if the word saving really applies to me right now. I feel saved. No, word is not. It's buoying me up. Well, I'm just happy to be alive. You know, I find I'm working on this online class where I talk about joy for the theme. Yeah, I talk about other things, but that's the overarching theme is joy. And there's big joys and there's little joys. And, you know, there's my husband and there's a cup of coffee. But my main joy is the delight, and I even Googled the definition of joy. And for me, it's the delight in just being alive and healthy.
I'll go after Jim. What's your one essential thing?
Being able to take care of myself. That every day works out, but I'm very conscious when I get in the car. Gotta be very get back home. Sigh of relief. I say that everything's good. So maintaining my inner peace, which means more to me than anybody will ever know. The relationship I have with my family of choice. You know, I love that, and I have a friend right now that facing some obstacles and being there to walk and go through this journey with them because we know what's going to happen. And I want to be there as a friend. They look at me as a sister, and I guess what keeps me grounded more than anything is my faith in God. I do not know where I would be if I wasn't grounded in my faith, in the way I feel. Just the way I am.
I think for me right now, there's a lot of chaos in my house, and my granddaughter's moved in, and all kinds of things. And I think when I have a tendency to want to just lose it, things aren't the way they're supposed to be, and the house is torn up. I've got this energy around me that's just chaotic. And have this thought that, no, you got this, that knowing that I've had teaching come into my life, that's prepared me for this moment. And that in this moment, I have all of it. And knowing that divinity knew this was all that happened. So the power is already doing it.
Excuse me, I think the thing that is keeping me most centered is my morning meditation. So if I don't do that, the morning is not starting out right. And I need time alone, my silent time to go inside. It's very important. Well,
Well, supplies dance keeps me grounded. And all that sort of encompasses. The extensions in my life and the community. It's really developed. And I do evening walks with my dog. And he's dying.
Sacred, that's fundamental.
I don't know if I wanted to mention it, but I feel like I need to.
Good.
That's a number of things, so I've been working with a list of things to do. And I get an idea about what to do in the next bit on that particular item on the list. And when I start to talk myself out of it, I said, no, the original idea was to do that, so I do it. And I'm doing it as kind of practice, and it's leading to some interesting things, things are always working out. So it's going forward. I'm always listening to, I'm always have sort of a focus on somebody's podcast or somebody's message or what have you. Right now, Carolyn Mace has got my attention. And so I'm listening to a bunch of stuff. That's like, oh, I feel that. That's it. Let's get some message from somebody who's a positive thinker and who's forward thinking.
She continues to grow. I like that.
Oh, yeah.
Maya, what's making you happy right now? Want to say what that is?
It's
It's a registration form for, is that, you said it's not-
It's a registration form for a school looking forward to growing.
Excellent.
Jen?
I think in a word, what's helping me is hope, and less than hopeful. But I think the way it illustrates this by way of a movie, there's a movie, relatively new movie called The Sea Beast, where there's a town that's against all the beasts that are in the sea. And these two people discover that story about the beast being bad is all from the rulers of the town. And they have to figure out how to have the hope and the strength to be able to stand against that message.
So we're gonna do it again. That one you did it wrong because I think this is fun. So if you don't think it's fun, yeah, I'll go. I will go. So if you don't think this is fun, you can say skip. But I'd like you to share it in one word.
Yeah.
It's going up, it's the essential things to pack. So I'm made up with stress.
I can see Charlie, but I don't
Love.
Peace.
create love.
I don't know what we're doing.
What's saving your life right now? What's the thing that's buoying you up, that keeps you going? One word.
Curiosity.
Knowing,
Can you do one word, Maya?
knowing.
Huh?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I gave my one more. Oh,
You did hope. That's good. Thank you for doing that. All right. All right, so I just wanted to go over this idea of the physicality of grace. Did anybody have questions about that? Last week, yeah. So what I want to challenge, like I'm going to ask you, if there's ways that you can either notice those movements in your life which are floating, smooth, release, there's some other ones. Discuss, what is that? The opposite of stress. There's some of them.
Stress, peace.
Movements in your body, how you move. What would be a movement that would be the opposite of stress? Sleep. Sleep. Fluidity. Sounds really good one.
heading the dog.
Petting the dog. What's it? Smooth.
Well, swimming.
Swimming.
Because I thought of that, your homework assignment. And so when I got in the pool, I thought, this is what you're talking about.
This is what I'm
I'm loving this, the water all around my body, the movement of the water. Me moving in the water, the way it feels on your face. It's really important to me, water.
So the movement that, there's a couple movements in swimming. But one of the predominant movements that I associate with that state of grace is the mud wash. Any others? Linda? You got any movements for me? So stress.
That whole thing like a wave, that's why I was thinking of swimming, you know, it's that.
But you're floating and you can, something start from the top of your head and the way, how things just move slowly all the way through your body. You become one with the water and just relax, release, and let it go.
That's right. Also swinging. Oh, yeah, swinging. Swing. So I have a little secret to tell you about why those movements are particularly graceful. And it's just, and they kind of bring us into a state of grace because they activate the kind of. So you come out of fight or flight or freeze, or if you're in it, when you do those movements. There's some other, I have a lot of hacks that way, but you'll have to take a dance class from me. Learn all of that information, but it's really important to have those movements in your life. So if you take it apart, I think a few of them are mentioned there. Hopefully will trigger the ideas of what those activities ask me. But make sure you have those in your life. Hanging also. They've got kind of maybe swaying, swinging, like all of those.
I'm gonna add to that, child's pose in yoga. I love that, getting into it and just the relief of connecting your body to the floor and not moving. There's a peace and restfulness to that pose.
Right, stillness.
But also, one song that we used to sing and at the other church we went to is I release, I let go. You know, and I'm only here for God. And you've got to think about that. Think about how powerful those words are. Just, you know, God, this is yours. Take it.
We're focusing on the movement.
You know, but to
What
me,
is the
releasing whatever thoughts I had, just release them.
And how do you release them? In your body, what is the movement?
I get centered and I think, you know, I start going back, let's go to the top of my head. Let's start taking my deep breaths, and that's how I try to get centered. And just,
I was struck by how autistic people, if they get into a frenzied space, they'll start rocking like this.
Yeah.
Very typical.
Yeah.
Just a very rhythmic
Children do it all the
movement,
time too.
right?
I do. Why did we do that?
I think it's the same type of thing she's talking about.
It's
It's
a
the-
it's
self-soother.
a space.
It really is.
Well, Jim, you know, my grandson is autistic.
Yeah.
And we found this out, he was only a few years old, and I was telling my son and the mother, I said, this is what you need to do, and as long as they kept him on this, he was fine. But when you stray, that's when the rocking and all this, when they're getting upset, that's where you're gonna notice they just, that's the way they handle things.
That's what
Their
brings
body
them back to
processes
this.
that way.
So let me continue that there's also slow motion movement is another one. Moving just in, so that you're like starting to stress out, just move in slow motion. That's easy. So that would continue, maybe in another class, just calendar grace.
It's just so interesting because when I do movement, and I'm doing my own individual like improv thing, those are the movements I always go to. It's like, you know, really you just listen to music and just let, you know, it's kind of the right kind of music, but you will just naturally go into all of those movements.
Yeah. And we could talk about this more in the dance class. But you know, when you're younger, it's slightly different. It's like all these movements only fast, but that's another conversation. Vietnam Para. So we talked about the Celts really drawn to the desert mothers and fathers, and they were really seeking out, like in this practice of the Anam Para, for a deeper life of faith and seeking wisdom, but that comes from life experience. So not that comes from written books, but from your lived experience. So there's something really earthy about the practice of this particular kind of spiritual direction. It's not about, you might in some other kind of form of spiritual direction read the Bible, you know, read sacred scripture, but of any kind. But in the work of the Anam Para, we don't really do that. It's really about opening your heart and being present with each other, listening with your whole self, not just your brain, your heart, your body. Melinda and I, Nancy, and some of you may really be body listeners. I listen with my body. That's the first place I listen. So lots of different listeners. So we talked about that ability to, when you cross the threshold, which we'll talk about more in a minute, really coming into this space, into this group with that intent. That's an invitation. There's also a big word in Celtic spirituality that hasn't come, I don't think it's come up a lot. But John O'Donoghue, he uses a lot, Christine Panther does a lot of Christmas study, which is belonging. This is really huge in the Celtic culture and that sense of belonging, even today. You know, having a sense of belonging, creating a sense of belonging, the house of belonging. Is that by John?
This way.
Oh, House of White. Yeah, beautiful. So that's a huge one. So I just read, this is a quote from O'Donoghue. If you send out goodness from yourself, or if you share that which is happy or good within you, it will all come back to you multiplied 10,000 times. In the kingdom of love, there is no competition, there is no possessiveness or control. The more love you give away, the more love you will have. That's at the heart, I think, of this practice. Meeting each other with that intent. And then we also talked a little bit about how the soul companioning maybe, like Sherry and I are going to sit together on Saturday, or that I worked as an Anamkara, or I've done art with Nancy. This puts me, for me, as she would be the Anamkara when I sit with her, puts me in such a zone that refreshes me, that I don't get it in many places in my life these days. That would be an Anamkara experience. I would consider her my Anamkara in that situation. Could be in a dance class, you could just have that experience with your body, with yourself. Singing for some people gives that sense of that deep ability to reveal who I am, who I am fully, just within myself, to myself. The divine. Harlow and Pat talked about their hiking in Sabina Canyon, or being just in nature, or Melinda being in the this hallowed sacred time you are with your companion dog. That is, you're Anamkara for each other. So all those experiences are soul friendship. And so it's not, I was reading this, I don't remember who I picked this up from, but it's not a friendship based on commonality. It's not hanging out, and it's not that. It's that other space, that touches you. And there's the poem by David White. So let's talk about Bridget for a minute. So I know her more from the Goddess of this reading was connecting a little bit more from kind of her Christian. I don't like that they call it pre-Christian. They kind of refer to her as pre-Christian and then Christian. She was a druid. She wasn't a pre-Christian. She was a goddess. And then this other Bridget from Kildare kind of embodied a lot of really so she, in that tradition, the tradition that I know, she's really the goddess of healing and poetry and smithcraft. But I often think of her as inspired and practical. And we were talking about, divine feminine. I think that in some ways we kind of limited how we talk about the feminine and the masculine in these kind of really big terms. But and we talked about this also, but most of those things, especially in our age, those definitions are really fluid. And she really captured that. She had a real practical side. She was really in the Brigida Kildare, who was the abbess, was really into justice also. Really, it might have been in this book that they talk about how she really is working with women's rights, and they were pretty brutal. And she came into Christian those times, where in the Celtic tradition, women were revealed and rape was considered a very harsh crime. Not so much in the early Christian years. So she kind of was working on that level. A lot of abbesses still created safe harbor for women who have been. So she was one of those. So I think of her in terms of that justice part. And then always, she was what we call a solar goddess, so associated with light, but not necessarily about the sun, but about light, which is about healing. So you know, I encourage you to say, she's such a great archetype, that kind of person, that kind of fun. You know, she's a great one to embody. She's so rich and full, and there's so much. And some of this, I feel like this is a little bit like Jesus too. So much is put on her that you're like, no, human being is not duplicitous. But she's a great, in terms of archetype, she's a really great archetype. So let's talk a little bit about thresholds. And I've been thinking about this, you know, I've been in a really long phase. It started with my father's death. And I never came out of thresholding. I'm still thresholding. And that is not uncommon, especially at our age, in this room. But Maya is in the epitome of threshold in the teen years. You're just, all of it is happening. You're in this in-between space. These are some of the things I've noticed about being in those thresholds, which are life and death, giving birth, you know, having children, giving birth, hospicing, sitting with people as they're passing. Those are the big ones, right? They're uncomfortable and super messy. I have found that part really hard. And they don't smell good. Like, they don't. I don't know. Once Sky was out, I was like, oh, this smells like that whole baby smell thing. I was like, oh yeah, that's like drink. No, anything else, like when you're thinking about some thresholds, either kinds of thresholds that you've been through or what the qualities of the threshold were?
I'll speak about my own threshold that's been going on for probably 40 years. Is leaving my roots religiously and then just exploring and moving and moving and moving, and I'm still moving. So I don't know where I'm going to end up, and this is a major transition. The reason I'm here is because I found you online. And I don't know how I will fit. I don't know if I'll stay for long. I might move on to something else. But I'm a seeker, a major seeker. And I've never been a joiner because I can't find, I guess there is no one place that I feel like is home for me in a spiritual sense.
What are your thresholds?
At least.
In 1971, we had a big earthquake in Southern California. And what you do is you get in a threshold for protection. So you get in there or open the door, right? You stand, so we're protected there. And when the earthquake happened, it was early in the morning, and my bed had wheels on it, and it was a wood floor, and so the whole bed moved back and forth. And I had this shelf with all the composers, and they all fell on me. So my mother ran into the room and said, you know, get in the threshold kind of thing, and I did. And I was really upset that I couldn't go to school and see my friends. And so, you know, like you turn on the TV to see what's happening, and the guy's out in the parking lot. So I don't know what else to say about that, but that just came in my mind. But what was it this book that talked about the word twilight? Yeah, okay, so it's two lights, it's the sun going down, the moon coming up. I love that. And I used that last night in my class at community match, and they were like, wow, I've never really thought about what that would mean, you know, and how, you know, that something's going down, something's coming up, death and life, and then you just don't know, you don't know what's coming up. And if you did, you're following someone else's path. If it's your own path, you don't know what's around the corner, you know. And even the dying and death of your dog makes me all upset, because I have a very dear dog that's with me. And so whenever I leave, she pouts and she's really upset. Me going to New York is gonna be awful. And I said to my husband, I'll make a video that you can play. But then I'm gonna make one for myself. And so I think that, these times are thresholds for them and for us. And knowing that, well, I've had a lot of dogs in my life that have died. And someone said, well, I'm getting off the subject, but I have to say this, that is the heartbreak of a dog dying worth the joy, the years of joy? Yes. Yeah. And I said to a friend, was it you or somebody, I said, can you love a dog too much? I'm worried about that. I'm worried I'm loving this dog too much. Every single person I've said that to says, no, you cannot love a dog too much. So, the pain you're feeling is because your love is so great for this dog. And what a beautiful thing to feel that much emotion for this little being, that's just this little gift from God. Sassy is a gift from God. She literally saved my life when I fell and was unconscious. She looked in my face. And, yeah, I saved her life too. She was the doctor.
Well, this is my story, because I adopted the dog when I was I needed a companion in my house. And then after my heart attack, my dog started sleeping with me. And it was so grounding. And it's now, as I'm looking back on it, it's really, he kind of like helped me a couple of times, and it's really interesting. I'm glad I at least realized it, whether it's for the people that at least I realize how much, and that will make it easier to let go.
In April of 1985, I went out of control. My dad died, as Coach R. I was a daddy's girl, and I had a hard time. I was only 32 and I was too young to lose my dad. Then after that, my grandma died, then my mama died, then my papa died. All my security that I knew was all gone. And I went through all those years of being so angry. My world was topsy-turvy. I didn't know where I was going. I did some stupid stuff. But then I realized, can't do this. And I had to reel myself back in to get centered, and realize things happen for a reason. My dad died because he's in a better place, but I have to look at that, and God needed him. His time on earth was done. And once I accepted that, that's where the inner peace. And that's the way I dealt with my dad. But you have to realize, like I said, being a daddy's girl, but just dealing with it. And that's the way I dealt with it. But I'm glad I went through it, because it showed me what strength that you have, what inner strength that you can draw from to get through this day by day grind.
And isn't that what aging is all about? We look back and it's like, I can't believe I survived all those thresholds.
Just to be at another threshold.
Really?
Can I take this in a slightly different direction? Because we're almost talking about thresholds as if they're just always to a scary place. And I've stood between 700 couples as they stood at the threshold place to an exciting new future. And that's an important thing to be able to see as well. Like during the midst of COVID, my friend Peter, who is my age, who was my senior pastor 20 years ago, announced he was retiring. And I wasn't thinking about retiring until all of a sudden Peter, my age, says I'm going to. And it's like suddenly I realized I was on a threshold somewhere in the near future of when do I? And that's too wonderful new future, but it's, I think we're very aware sometimes of what we leave, but not what we go towards.
Yeah. That's good.
Sorry, did I hijack things?
No, you didn't, no, I didn't take them. They all start, well, so here's the threshold, I remember, this was the most impactful threshold that I was at. Because Sky was graduating from high school as my mother was dying. Sky graduated, my mother died in June. And it was such a weird, that juxtaposition of that loss and then here she, when you give it through high school. It's a big deal, right? Like, she's off now, and it's fun to watch her go through all those places and first times traveling. There's another kind of threshold. Did you have one that you're interested in?
Just, maybe something a little bit different. These are all kind of big things, but I'm thinking of the list that I worked on today. And every item, everything I did was at a threshold. I could have not done it and stayed where I was, but no, I made the phone call. I sent the email. Every single threshold I went through. They were all thresholds because there was the moment.
That's such a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
Well, it's true, because I don't know about you, but one of the things I was trained to do was talk myself out of things. And, it might be scary, right?
Yeah.
So can't do that, or it happens so fast that you don't even realize, but there was an inspiration, it's like,
Yeah.
no, I'm gonna make that phone call and that person's gonna be nice to me. I'm gonna imagine the nice person.
Yeah.
So I went through I did a bunch of thresholds today.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And we cross them. So let's just cross one right now. So if you everybody's crossed my thresholds. And you can have your eyes either closed or open, but just take a few breaths. When I say a few, about like 5 or 6 breaths in and out. And this is and notice the texture of the air and the temperature of the air coming into your body. And notice what it feels like coming out. So this is the threshold between working and better, and what connects that. Feel like have a sense of that breath. So what did you notice about the temperature? Is there a different temperature going in? Like, texture?
I didn't think.
I noticed mechanics. I breathe in through the bottom of my mouth and breathe out through the top.
Was it different temperature then? Didn't notice. Anybody notice anything? Dry? It's dry. A little wetter. That's good.
Feel it in different places in my nostrils.
Yeah. Breathing in. Yeah. This one. Breathe out. Jumping over the so cute.
Breathe in, then you breathe out into me, it's like, okay, that stuff is gone. Now, get myself to stay centered like I need to do.
Doorways. Mezuzah, right? Do you know the Jewish? Such a beautiful tradition, and so I have my own tradition with Sky when she was a little girl. When I say that, until about when she was 20. Whenever I would leave her, I would kiss. I always wore lipstick, and I'd kiss the doorway, and that was something for her for some reason. But I love that idea of so this your practice for the week is to practice the breathing and notice it as the inner landscape and outer landscape, and the breath as the connection. But also, as you pass through doorways, just notice you're stepping into something new. You're stepping into something unknown, even if it's your bathroom. You're stepping into a new possibility every doorway. So that's another one. The one that I'm doing right now, so those are two ways of practicing gratitude. And the third one is called Statio, and it really is about,
It's called what?
Statio. It's really from like the Catholic tradition. But what I love about it, it's really just about pause. Pause. We've been talking about this in the mindfulness group. Just throughout the day, taking a pause. And, even taking a moment to reflect. What thresholds do I have left in front of me? Where am I at? Just like, where am I at? It's such a great practice, especially for those of us, like I get unfocused and I have a hard time with focus. So the pause really helps for me, as long as I don't wander off, that's a danger for me. But so that is the call it the pause. Oh, speaking of pause, that's a good transition threshold.
Oh, there.
Any questions about those so far?
Yeah,
Yeah.
back to the Jewish, what does that mean again? What is that?
It is, so first of all, it's a little thing, yeah.
I know what it looks like, I just don't know what it means. It has the Shema in it. What's that?
It's a prayer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, here it is, so it has a prayer inside, and then what?
It's a reminder that so the prayer is, Hero Israel, the one Lord our God is one God.
Just a reminder that God is in this place. You touch it as you walk in the door. You remind yourself of the presence of the divine in the divine word. And it's about pledge to hear. Right, to discover that space of hearing and listening.
Yeah.
That-
And to remember that we're all one.
I have a Calm app that comes on and tells me, how are you feeling? And so it's sort of like a pause thing, that's a good time. But the other app I have, which is the Holy Bible, and it's like really traditional, but it sings hallelujah. Every, like, 8:12 in the evening, you hear this, hallelujah. It's like, oh, that's the biggest reason I have it, is it comes on at different times of the day. Not just that hallelujah. Yeah, and there's a prayer and there's inspiration and stuff. It's really, I don't really go for the rest of it, but I like that. See,
Kind of, it's neat. I know it's kind of fun living near churches where they have bells.
yes, bells.
You know,
With
I got that one.
It doesn't drown.
but I'm always reminded of the community comments that where they would just ring a bell periodically and to remind you to pause. And he would say, do that anytime you hear a bell, but however the bell is, whether it sounds like a bell, if it's a car alarm, anything like that, stop and pause. Whatever it is, which is what the hallelujah is doing too, it's saying stop and pause.
Are those just random, like, or do you have them set at a certain time?
Okay.
Just go for it.
do the Holy Bible app, is the King James one. I'm just warning you that there's a lot of stuff I'm not allowed about.
I noticed our time, so I'm gonna read one poem to us and then close. But here's the things to think about. Where the nation is in a big threshold. The world is in a big threshold. We're in a big space. And St. Francis is in a between space. And the scary part of that is we don't know what comes next. The gift in it is we get to have a say in that. We get to, you know, start envisioning where we're headed. So think about that, you know, see if that comes in your awareness. That's 3 big places in my life: the earth, the nation, my church. I mean, it's a lot. I didn't get to talk too much about liminal space, but maybe I'll try to work that in next week, which is just a threshold in space. And it's what they call a thin place. Talked about this, but it's where the seen and the unseen are very close. You can have a sense of feeling the unseen. Sedona is a thin place. The labyrinth for me here is a thin place. Some of you have ideas of thin places. The ocean for the Celts, they talked about the breakwater, the break of the wave, as being a thin place. It's transition.
There's a valley, one valley.
Just like sitting on a beach, and it's, getting into the wave, and your mind just transforms. You're one with the wave, you know, that's all, everything else is blocked out, and that's all you hear is this wave coming in, and you go through the process of depressing, you know, I mean, it's decompressing and all that, and you become one, and your mind goes blank almost, and it just relaxes.
Now, bodies of water out. Anybody else have this place?
Shuttle stop 1 in Cedar Canyon. You walk down and there's a creek in the water side, and that's where I gather some of my parents' ashes. So I like to go down there and talk to them. It's really helpful if there's water going. It's no water.
So, yes.
That's at least 9 minutes.
I have a place that I walk. It almost goes into the mountains near my house. And there's one of those old fashioned windmills on it. And I sing. I have done a lot of singing in my past, but I've written some little songs and I sing those as I'm walking. And this is the truth. That windmill starts to turn. I still have never figured that one out. I'll walk past, it stops. When I come back, it starts to turn. It makes me cry every time that happens. It's just, yeah, I don't get it. I don't know.
So,
The other way I define liminal for me, it's kind of like what Frigga means in ancient, you know, if you go back to the Sanskrit for honey, is about brightness. And it's the brightness that you talked about, not of light so much, but of clarity. So liminal means that. And so that type of thing shows clarity. Maybe we don't understand it all the time, but it shows that.
so this is, I know I've given you a lot of things that you may or may not try this, but I hope you will. I would love for you, if you have a phone that takes pictures, to take a picture of liminal spaces that you want to go, hey, this is very thin, this feels like a threshold to me. And send them to me. Not hard pictures. All right, well, we're almost done. So find yourself in a comfortable comfortable seats, and you can cross your legs this time. Anyway, you want to sit and focus in. This is a poem by a gentleman called John Gardner. Atop a high mountain or in a dark valley below, in the corner of your room or in the hustle and bustle of the busy city center, may you find a thin place, a time, an event so unique, so full of wonder, so sublime. Place where heaven and earth collide, where the veil of separation is unusually thin. A time where you can almost feel angelic wings beat against your cheeks and see the divine smiling through. An event where your heart quickens and you experience the mystery of the other in the moment. A thin place, threshold, a holy bridge, the door to the throne room slightly open. It is a moment in time and space in which we can dwell, dance, and move, if you're aware. A thin place is an encouragement, a sacred invitation to draw near, to approach barefoot in humility and reverence and awe. It is both seen and unseen. May you, in the wilderness of the countryside or the city, find a thin place within.
You have copies of that in your hand?
I will make copies for you. I didn't make a copy of this, but I will make a copy for next week.